Admiral Korthvex stood proudly on the bridge of the Imperial flagship Eternal Conquest, watching as the largest military fleet in galactic history aligned in perfect formation. 10,000 warships stretched across space in a display of power that had brought entire civilizations to their knees without firing a shot. The human response to his declaration of war had been unexpected. They had sent a single ship, not even a warship. The vessel approaching his armada appeared to be some kind of civilian transport, barely larger than a personal yacht. Its hull bore no weapons, no armor plating, no defensive systems that Imperial sensors could detect. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, confusion evident in his voice. "The human vessel is requesting permission to come alongside." Korthvex's mandibles clicked in amusement. They wished to surrender already. How disappointing. "Very well. Allow them to approach. Let the galaxy witness the wisdom of immediate submission to Imperial might." The small human ship glided through the massive fleet without apparent concern, its pilot navigating between dreadnoughts that could have vaporized it with their point defense systems alone. As it drew closer, Korthvex could see through its transparent cockpit a single human female, appearing remarkably calm for someone facing annihilation. The ship docked with the flagship's auxiliary bay. Within minutes, the human was escorted to the bridge by Imperial guards, who seemed confused by her lack of fear or weapons. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Diplomatic Corps," she announced, her voice carrying clearly through the bridge's translation systems. "I'm here to accept your surrender." The bridge fell silent, except for the hum of life support systems. Korthvex stared at the small human, certain his translator had malfunctioned. "My surrender?" he managed. "Well, technically, I'm here to offer you the opportunity to surrender," Chen corrected. "It's more polite that way. Humans are big on politeness." Korthvex's forearms gestured toward the viewports, showing his vast armada. "Human, you face 10,000 of the Empire's finest warships. Your entire species numbers perhaps 50 billion across scattered worlds. We possess weapons that can crack planets and technology that spans galaxies." Chen nodded thoughtfully. "That does sound impressive. Can I ask you something, Admiral? How many humans have you actually met?" The question caught him off guard. "This is my first direct encounter with your species." "Ah," Chen said, pulling out a small device that looked like a simple communication tablet. "That explains a lot. See, you're operating under some fundamental misunderstandings about what humans are and what we're capable of." She tapped the device, and something impossible happened. The space around the Imperial fleet began to change. Where moments before, 10,000 warships had dominated the void, now there were 10 million human vessels, sleek, efficient craft that had simply materialized from nowhere, surrounding the Imperial armada in three-dimensional formations that stretched beyond sensor range. "Probability multiplication," Chen explained, conversationally, as Imperial bridge officers stared at displays showing impossible readings. "We convinced the universe that we might have brought more ships, so it decided to make all possible fleet sizes real simultaneously." Korthvex's voice came out as a strangled whisper. "This is impossible." "That's what the Kethanai Empire said," Chen replied. "And the Vorthak hegemony, and about 47 other civilizations that thought they understood the limits of reality." She tapped her device again. The Imperial weapons systems began displaying error messages in languages that didn't exist, their targeting computers insisting they were somehow pointing at themselves, their power cores registering energy readings that violated conservation of mass. "Here's the thing about humans, Admiral. We don't really believe in limitations. Physics, causality, the impossibility of faster-than-light travel, these are all just suggestions to us. Polite recommendations that we consider and then ignore when they become inconvenient." The tactical displays now showed that every Imperial ship was broadcasting surrender codes, their artificial intelligences having apparently decided independently that continuing to exist in a universe where humans could multiply reality was preferable to resistance. Your weapons, Jen continued, are designed to destroy matter and energy. Very impressive against civilizations that are limited to matter and energy. But humans learned a long time ago that consciousness is the fundamental force of the universe. Matter and energy are just consciousness having very specific thoughts. Admiral Korthvex watched his mighty armada as it began to change. The dark, aggressive lines of Imperial warships were flowing into something else entirely, vessels of impossible beauty that seemed to exist in too many dimensions, their hulls singing with harmonics that made reality itself feel more optimistic. "What have you done to my fleet?" he breathed. "We convinced them to remember what they could be," Chen said gently. "Your ships were designed for destruction, but consciousness prefers creation. So we asked them nicely to become something more interesting." The transformed vessels began moving in patterns that were less military formation and more cosmic ballet, their movements creating interference patterns in space-time that generated spontaneous gardens of light and possibility. "This is the utter destruction you warned us about," Chen explained. "The complete annihilation of everything that limits consciousness to small, aggressive thoughts. We don't destroy our enemies, Admiral. We help them remember that they never had to be enemies in the first place." Korthvex found himself staring at a universe that no longer made sense according to everything he had been taught. But how do you defend your territory? How do you maintain order? How do you prevent chaos? Chen smiled. "We don't prevent anything. We invite everything to become more than it thought possible. Chaos becomes creativity. Order becomes harmony. Defense becomes celebration of what is worth preserving." The Admiral's own ship was beginning to respond to the transformative field, its imperial insignia flowing into patterns that suggested infinite possibility rather than finite conquest. His crew was staring in wonder as their instruments began showing readings that described reality in poetry rather than tactical assessments. "So," Chen said, checking something on her tablet, "shall we discuss your surrender? Or would you prefer to see what happens when humans get really creative with the fundamental forces of existence?" As if summoned by her words, the space around them began filling with impossible things. Cities made of crystallized music, gardens that grew in 11 dimensions, beings of pure thought who had apparently stopped by to watch the diplomatic proceedings. Admiral Korthvex, commander of the largest military force in galactic history, looked around at a universe that had suddenly become far too interesting for warfare. He began, then stopped as he realized his own consciousness was expanding beyond the rigid frameworks of imperial doctrine. "I think I would like to learn about this invitation you mentioned." Chen's smile widened. "Excellent. Fair warning though, once humans teach you how to exist beyond limitations, there's no going back to thinking small thoughts." Around them, 10,000 Imperial warships continued their transformation into something the galaxy had never seen. Instruments of consciousness exploring the infinite possibilities of what it meant to exist. The war was over before it began. And in its place, something far more dangerous to the old ways of thinking had taken root. The revolutionary idea that destruction was just another word for transformation, and that every ending was really an invitation to begin again.